Okay, so in step 2, how to wax your snowboard, what you're going to need is you're going to need a large plastic scraper, and of course you're going to need your wax, you need an iron, a Scotch-Brite pad, and a big brush. Okay, so once the iron is heated up, basically what you want to do is you want to take your wax and you want to just drip it everywhere. It's not so important on the nose and the tail of the board, but it's hot. But you want to make sure you get your edges. And basically you want to put a smooth layer across the entire board. So you'll notice that the edges right now are actually kind of whiter than the middle of the board, and obviously that's because that's where you're getting most of the usage. So you want to make sure that the edges have a nice, layer of wax over them, because that's where you're going to be using, the wax the most. So what you want to do is just take your iron and you basically just want to put the wax and let it drip everywhere. You want to make sure that the wax isn't smoking, because if it's smoking, that means that your iron is too hot, and that's going to damage your board, and you're not going to get very good usage out of your wax. So basically, you want to put the wax everywhere. You're going to smooth it out anyway, so kind of just drip it everywhere. What you want to do is you want to smooth it out. So just put the iron right on there, and make sure you always are moving the iron and it's not in one spot for too long, because that's going to damage your board if your board gets heated up too much. And a good way to tell if you're like overheating your board is if you touch the bottom of the board and it's really hot. That's like a bad sign. You probably want to get the iron off that spot and don't touch it until it cools back down. So that's one way you can tell if you're kind of overheating your board. Now, a lot of people also say that you should basically drag your iron from nose to tail to kind of, I guess, since your board is going that way, to smooth the wax out, but it really doesn't matter because you're gonna scrape it all off anyway. So I just kind of make sure that there's a nice even layer over the entire board. I kind of just do it in a circular motion. Alright, so after you finish waxing your entire board, you've got a nice layer over the entire board. I don't actually do the tip and the tail and the nose, because that part of the board doesn't really touch the snow as much. So I don't even bother to wax that part. You can if you want, but it's not really going to make a difference. So after you finish waxing the entire board, you want to let it sit for about 15 minutes. Let all that hot wax absorb in your board, because that's actually the good wax. All this excess layer on top you're going to scrape off, which is just kind of like bad wax. Alright, so after the wax is dried, take your large plastic scraper and basically just scrape it off the same way you did with the base repair. So you can either pull or you can push. I like to pull, so like that. If you're having trouble getting the wax off, like it's taking forever to get it off, it could be because your scraper's not sharp. So, use some sort of sandpaper and sharpen it up, and it'll make it a lot easier to scrape off all the wax. So basically, you're just gonna drag it. I'm just gonna keep dragging it until everything comes off. So basically, all the good wax is already absorbed into the board. All the wax you can see on here, this is all kind of bad wax, and leaving it on the board isn't going to help you any. It's going to kind of actually make you slower. So you want to scrape off as much as you can. And so the way you can tell that you've got basically all of it off is when you scrape. When you scrape only a little bit like that comes off, and that's a pretty good indication that you got most of it off. So go ahead and keep scraping all the way down your board until you scrape all of it off. Okay, so after you're done scraping off all the wax from the board, take your brush and you want to just brush it lightly from nose to tail. And the reason you want to do this is basically just to create less friction between the snow and your board. And so obviously if you ride switch, then you're going to go the other way anyway, but the direction you mostly go nose to tail, you want to just brush it lightly. Alright, so after you've done that, then you just want to do a little touch up with your Scotch-Brite pad. And of course go the same way, nose to tail. Just drag it along the board. Even out all the little patches, make it nice and smooth. And that is how to wax your snowboard.